You have before you some amendments to the agenda. Under item 5, exemplars of excellence, we've moved item A to item B and changed item A to presentation of check there to cover stipends for robotics coaches. And then under item 9, the consent agenda, we have removed board policy or pulled board policy 5.607, non-school employment. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
You need to add that delegate. You need to add that delegate
Oh, yes.
as amended
Did you
also.
get that? And then also we need to add Allison Anderson to the delegates.
Okay. Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones. Yes. Mrs. Lennon. Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Next, we'll have our Pledge to the Flag meditation by Miss Amy Myhan, Assistant Principal of Sequoia High.
Good evening, Dr. Johnson, Chairman Wingate, members of the board. I'm Amy Myhan. I have the pleasure of serving as the Assistant Principal at Sequoia High School in District 1 in the North River Learning Community. Thank you for allowing me for a moment to share my thoughts with you this evening. As a child, my parents taught me to memorize scriptures, verses from the Bible to help me get through specific times that might have been challenging. For instance, when a thunderstorm would come and wake me up in the middle of the night, instead of running to their bed and waking them up, they taught me to say the verse, Psalms 56:3, "What time I'm afraid, I will trust in thee." So I would repeat that to myself until I fell back asleep. Another verse that I heard quite often as a child from my parents was Ephesians 6:1. "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." I find myself as a parent of 3 children saying that one quite often to my children. So each morning as we start our day at Sequoia, in that moment of silence before one of our great students leads the pledge, I think to myself and remind myself of what my responsibilities are each day to the students and faculty that I serve. And the verse that I often repeat in my head is Micah 6:8. What does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. For me, as I start my day with that thought in mind, it simplifies many tasks and sometimes the challenges that lie ahead of me. To act justly is simply doing what's right and making the choices that are best for my students. For me, to love mercy goes hand in hand with acting justly. We all mess up at some point and need to be shown mercy to be set back on the right path. The last part of that verse is to walk humbly. C.S. Lewis said that true humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. I cannot be successful without being humble and relying on the wisdom and support of those around me. So as you take on the important tasks ahead of you tonight, I challenge you and I challenge us all to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. So at this time, if you would, join me as we pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myhan. Next, we'll have our exemplars of excellence. Mr. Charlie Spencer.
So thank you for allowing me to come before you all at the last minute. Scott Rosenau is handing out some robotics information with you. So I wanted to recognize the Hamilton County teachers that have been involved in the robotics programs this year. We have 84 teachers in Hamilton County schools that are doing robotics. In 2007, we had about 3 schools that were doing robotics. We now have 46 schools in Hamilton County, about half the schools that are doing robotics. We have 63 teams, about 500 students.
Thank you.
And of the 63 teams, 18 have qualified for state championship. And for those of y'all that don't know Scott, Scott is really the heart and soul of robotics here in Hamilton County. He's a E-Lab teacher, VW E-Lab teacher at Hickson Middle School. He's been involved in robotics for 10 years, and he coordinates robotics for all Hamilton County schools and the private and home schools here. He runs competitions. We really couldn't do the robotics programs without him, and I wanted you, the board, to know what a great teacher and individual Scott is to make robotics a part of the education. And so I'm going to give a check of $20,000 for the teachers. It doesn't completely recognize the time that they've given, but it's something, and it's a start. We need to, really, these programs would not work without the teacher. The teacher is really the most important part of these programs. And the programs are everywhere. I think they're in all of y'all's districts. Every student can benefit from these programs. And we have a personal goal in our nonprofit to get programs in the other half of the schools that are not in there now. So thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Spencer, thank you for what you do, and thank you for the contribution. Next, we'll have Ms. Rachel Turner.
Hey everybody, my name is Rachel Turner. I'm the Social Studies Content Lead for grades 6 through 12 here in the district. And I want to take just a quick second to recognize the accomplishments and the hard work of our Social Studies Department. As outlined on the most recent Tennessee State report card, our proficiency levels grew about 12% last year over the previous school year. That growth actually outpaced Metro Nashville, Knox County, and Shelby County schools. Overall, we were awarded a 4 out of a 5 on TVOS, which is student growth, and middle schools were actually awarded a 5 out of a 5. Our benchmarks are looking very, very promising. I think you guys are going to be very pleased with what you see later on this summer when the state releases test scores. On behalf of the Social Studies Department, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Dr. Johnson and his team for supporting our department. Everything you guys have done for us, your commitment to us, it's really paying off, and we appreciate it. But I'm really here to recognize 2 of our outstanding social studies teachers. Both of them are teachers at CSAS, and I'm going to start with Mr. Hendricks. So this is Chris Hendricks. Chris was recently named the Daughters of the American Revolution United States History Teacher of the Year. This award is given to a teacher who holds high standards for all students, successfully relates history to modern life and events, and fosters a spirit of patriotism and loyal support of our country and constitutional government among students. Linda Moss Mines, who represents the Daughters of American Revolution, says that they're proud to recognize Chris for his tireless work using the depth of his knowledge to inspire students. Thank you, Chris. I'd also like to recognize April Wyatt, who also teaches at CSAS. April was recently named the Tom and Stella Mullane Geography Teacher of the Year. That means she's the top geography teacher in the state of Tennessee. She was recognized for her commitment to making geography relevant and engaging for her students. Kurt Butefish, who is the director of the Tennessee Geographic Alliance and a professor at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, calls her class one that he would like to be in as a student. April will be recognized in a couple of weeks at the Tennessee Council for Social Studies Conference, and we're very, very proud of both of you guys.
Guys, congratulations to you both. Please come forward. Let us shake your hand, if you would. I see Mr. Jim Bowles back there. Jim, what kind of fantasy draft did you win in this?
I got to take a picture of my kids first.
Okay.
I tell you what, they are top notch. I was going to joke and say Miss Wyatt is in my old classroom. That has to do something with
Yeah, something rubbed off. Now,
She was my student teacher, so
there you go. Trickle down. Now, so you know that we're all going to be in trouble here if we don't yield to the board member from Arts and Sciences. So I will do that at this time.
I just wanted
Oh,
to
sorry,
say.
two board members. I
Well,
forgot.
I am the board member from.
The one with the light on. The one with the light on.
Right,
We'll go.
so Jenny and I are the board members from Arts and Sciences, so like we were students there. But I just wanted to say that I am very proud of you. Mr. Hendricks was one of my student teachers, so he's probably good because he taught me and I broke him in. Right, Coach Bowles? And April Wyatt was a student with me. We were peers together in CSAS, so I'm very proud of them, and it's really neat to see Mr. Hendricks blossom the way he has. So I'm really proud of you, Mr. Hendricks.
Miss Jenny Hill, surely you would have something also.
Well, I mean, I know that April's fantastic. She's one of my nearest and dearest, and she actually is teaching my daughter geography right now. And I can tell you that Annabelle went in with a significant deficit as to where things are in the world, and she is proving that she can learn all of these countries. So she's having a good time. Thank you, April. Thank you, Chris.
Congratulations again.
Could I say
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Dr. Highlander.
I very much appreciate both of these people. As a social studies teacher for a long time myself, I appreciate it. I also appreciate what Rachel's doing with the group very much across the county, and I just want to say she was a great teacher at the adult high school, but now she's spreading the joy and the love and the love of learning and social studies throughout the county, and I appreciate her very much. Thank you.
All right, this time we'll recognize our delegations. First up, Ms. Theresa Turner. Sorry.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to go ahead and read the statement while you're passing that out. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, please do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact the central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent. If I believe you're criticizing an individual employee, I will interrupt you and ask you to refrain. If you continue to criticize individual employees, or if, in my opinion, your remarks are in error or becoming repetitive, I may interrupt you and ask you to sit down. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes, and I will tell you when you have 1 minute left. You may begin.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Good evening. Chairman Wingate, board members, and Dr. Johnson. I count it a privilege to speak with you tonight representing the leadership and members of the Hamilton County Education Association, and speaking on behalf of the 3,877 certified employees working daily in schools and other assigned sites throughout the Hamilton County School District. My name is Theresa Turner. I'm the Tennessee Education Association UNICEF Coordinator assigned to District 7, which includes Hamilton County, Bradley County, Athens City, and Cleveland City. I want to again celebrate the 2 teachers who were recognized tonight and all of our educators who work hard daily. I'm sharing with you tonight a couple of documents in particular. A copy of Will Pinkston's February 2019 report titled Race to the Bottom, How Bad Actors Tried to Destroy Public Education, which is Mr. Pinkston's chronology of what happened a decade ago in Tennessee's education system and the impact that it continues to have on the public schools, in particular in school districts such as Nashville, which is where Mr. Pinkston is currently a school board member. I'm sharing this document with you for you to consider as you assess your past, present, and your future attempts to improve schools. Mr. Pinkston's advice as a result of his experiences with the Race to Top legislation speaks clearly about the ills of privatization, including charter schools, vouchers, and those organizations associated with the privateer movement, including groups associated with the testing industry. A second document I am sharing with you tonight is a copy of the TEA Public School Advocate, which is a legislative report shared with our members to keep them apprised of what's happening in the current General Assembly in Nashville. Noted highlights in this edition includes reaching out 2020 vision with Red for Ed. This is our campaign statewide to accomplish the goal of eliminating high-stakes decisions based on state tests and increasing the state's investment per student to the Southeast region average. And if you pulled out in the middle page of that, you'd see what those averages are, and how everyone, but especially those of us who value public education, can get involved in helping to reach the 2020 vision. Also noted in that particular edition is the big changes in the Capitol. I don't have to tell you, you get a legislative review from your group that represents you legislatively. But the House Education is now one of the largest committees in the state legislature. This means that education is front and center, and advocacy for public education continues to be critical. And then the other article, or the last article in that edition, is an even worse voucher idea: unaccountable education savings accounts. Privateers are using this as a new means to try to change the conversation after 5 years of defeats when peddling more traditional voucher legislation. I applaud your leadership in passing the petition against vouchers earlier last spring, and I trust that you will continue to lobby against the passage of such legislation. In honor of February being Black History Month, I encourage you to take a look at one of the old publications by Carter G. Woodson called The Miseducation of the Negro, and consider it as a primer and a guide for educating all children, especially in the current environment where so much attention and emphasis is placed on scoring students and teachers based on a single test score. Mr. Woodson highlighted in his book in 1933, just a few of these chapters, how we missed the mark, how we drifted away from the truth, education under outside control, hirelings in the place of public servants. Mr. Woodson was ahead of his time in thinking and researching problems in public education and steps to take to keep public education public. Lastly, I want to invite each of you to be the guest of HCEA by attending TEA's 23rd Annual Teaching and Learning Symposium on April 5th and 6th. It's being held in Chattanooga, at the Chattanoogan, where Jamie Ballmer will bring the keynote address, where he'll be talking about welcome to great conversations, building public support for public schools, one community at one time. I will end with the following quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Education must enable a man to become more efficient, to achieve with increasing facility the legitimate goals of his life, and education must enable one to sift and weigh evidence, to discern the true from the false, the real from the unreal, and the facts from the fiction. I thank you for allowing me this time. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you, Ms. Turner. Next, we'll have Allison Anderson.
Good evening. My name is Allison Anderson, and I'm a parent of a kindergartner here in Hamilton County Schools. I saw a survey posted earlier this week that HCDE is reviewing the Code of Acceptable Behavior and Conduct this spring, and it compelled me to come and speak with you all briefly tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. This administration and board have laid the groundwork to do so much good for Hamilton County Schools. Future Ready, Teach for America, the 5-year plan, it all has so much potential to increase achievement. But behavior and discipline problems have the potential to drag down the results of all of this well-planned work. What I and a lot of Hamilton County parents would like to see is for the school discipline environment to be evaluated and treated with the seriousness of the academic interventions being rolled out. The research would argue that you're only going to get limited results in one without the other. Having early elementary school age kids myself, I'm particularly concerned about our youngest learners, many of whom, for developmentally appropriate reasons, struggle to adapt their behavior to the rigors of the school day. This is a significant classroom management challenge, and the way it's approached makes a big impact on kids and schools for the long term. On the one hand, students can be punished physically or yelled at or shamed and eventually internalize that they are bad kids, zapping their natural love of learning before they've made it out of first grade and setting them up to be troublemakers and underperformers for years to come. On the other hand, students can feel valued and supported by their teachers who are trained to teach self-regulation skills, allow students to get frustration out of their bodies with physical activity, and positively reinforce good choices. This leads to fewer classroom issues over time, improves self-esteem, and increases personal and interpersonal life skills. As you consider the Code of Acceptable Behavior and Conduct this spring, know that parents want you to think about how their children are being treated, not only the list of wrongs that students sometimes commit during the school day. The evidence base of various discipline techniques and their effects is extensive, and I encourage the policy committee to do its research. If there are ways that parents can help, please let us know. To conclude, I urge the board and central office staff to make school discipline in the school environment a priority that dovetails with the efforts to improve academic achievement. In a time when the latest data is showing that nearly 1 in 7 children have a mental health problem, if our kids are to be future ready, not only must they master the academics offered, but they must also have the social and emotional regulation skills to lead and thrive in work and life. School environment, where a majority of kids' waking hours are spent, can be a big boost to that or a big detractor. Being a big boost will take effort and investment, but the results both within schools and for our students will be well worth it. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sanderson. All right, next we'll have a Future Ready update. Mr. Blake Freeman.
As Blake comes up, obviously we're closing out year one of Future Ready Institutes, and a lot of work is going on. So look forward to the update from Blake this afternoon.
Superintendent Johnson, Chairman Wingate, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight about Future Ready Institutes. This is a continuation of our goal of having Hamilton County be the fastest improving school district in Tennessee. Today I'll be addressing in our Future Ready 2023 plan, Future Ready students. As a reminder, there are KPIs that are for our Future Ready Institute students. And our key strategies are to prepare all students for college and career. And in those key strategies is launching and developing and expanding Future Ready Institutes here in Hamilton County Schools. So just as a reminder, and you can see on the screen, you have a copy of this presentation as well, just as a reminder of what our institute approach is. Our institute approach is a little different whenever we think about high school students. Number one, we think about smaller learning communities, and we think that's key and know that's key as we develop our students and develop unique learning environments in our schools. Learning environments are comprised of students that are in smaller cohorts and also teachers that are scheduled strategically together with the career and technology teacher to teach lessons around a particular career theme. In addition, all of our institutes are focused on career pathways, which we have a wide variety of career pathways that are offered in our Future Ready Institute schools. Engaging instruction is also key for Future Ready Institutes. As a reminder, we started this year with 9th grade students, and as we continue to move into year 2, where we will add 9th and 10th grade students, our engaging instruction includes not only just classwork, but also giving students the opportunity to be involved in engaging lessons, to be involved in project-based learning, to have individuals from the business community come into the classroom, as well as take students out of the school and into the specific business and industry environment to have an engaging instructional experience. Strong business partnerships are key to our Future Ready Institutes. We recognize that, many educators are like me. We went through school ourselves. We went to college in a teacher preparatory program, and then we went back into the classroom. But we know that if we're to be able to educate students to go into the workforce of tomorrow, we need to get their input. We need to understand what is it like to work in different portions of business and industry. And so those partnerships are key in educating the teachers, as well as giving exposure to students about our different business and industry opportunities here in Chattanooga. And then lastly, post-secondary certification and credentials are key for our Future Ready Institutes. You may already know that we have an indicator in the state of Tennessee, which is the Ready Graduate Indicator. Our goal is that our Future Ready Institute students will all meet those 4 EPSO goals, and that will be accomplished by providing them post-secondary opportunities, earning dual enrollment credit, as well as working towards industry-recognized credentials that can help them in their future. So when we think about our timeline of action, it seems like, at least to me, forever ago that we started this, but it's actually been pretty quick. It was last March of 2018, we launched our Future Ready Institutes. We made the announcement about our Future Ready Institutes, and then we began our work with the business community as well as school leadership and school teachers to develop our Future Ready Institute plan. Future Ready Institute teachers joined us for a week-long summer professional development in June at Unum, and we spent time working on collaboration. How do we collaborate between math, science, English, history, as well as the career-focused courses, as well as what is project-based learning? How do we actually bring relevancy into the classroom instead of completing assignments in isolation? How do we actually create projects that really engage students? And also, teachers participated in a 2-day teacher externship program where they went into different places of business and industry and experienced life in those different areas. We opened institutes in 2018, so we had 20 Future Ready Institutes in 13 locations, with almost a third of our freshmen being a part of those institutes. We have continued, beginning in September of 2018, to monthly have professional development opportunities for our teachers as well as administrators to look at the unique nature of Future Ready Institutes. In November, we began work with the National Career Academy Coalition, which is a nationally recognized coalition who are experts in the Career Academy approach. I myself joined a career collaborative with leaders all across the United States that are in positions like mine to learn about what are the trends and what's happening in across the United States. And we took a group of one representative from every school to Houston, Texas to attend a conference for National Career Academy. And also we invited NCAC to here in Chattanooga. They were actually in this boardroom for 3 days where they worked with teachers, administrators, business leaders, as well as our district leadership to help develop a 3-year plan. And we think that's crucial as we look at building fidelity amongst all of our high schools. How do we develop that plan so that our students are getting the most engaging opportunities available? And you'll hear a little bit more in a second, but in December 2018, just a few months ago, we launched our industry councils. And those industry councils are in association with the Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce, and that allows us to have expert advice in different career fields. We have 4 industry councils that work with us and the Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce. And like I said, you'll hear a little bit more about that in a few minutes. In 2019, so just last month, we had over 80 students that were had an entire day at UTC from all of our institutes, and they were certified as student ambassadors. And that's very important that we let students be the ones that tell the story. And actually, I have a couple that are going to be with me, that are with me now, and they'll share their story here in a second. Believe it or not, as much as I would love to say that students would listen to me and my gray hair and decide, oh yeah, I want to join an institute, listening to students is so much more important. And when they hear people that are, when they hear individuals that just ran 8th grade classes last year, share what they're doing this year, it's so much more meaningful. And so we were excited to train them. This month, beginning next Monday, actually, at Unum from 5:30 until 7, all of our institutes will be available for the public to come and talk to student ambassadors, talk to teachers, talk to administrators to learn more about their institutes. The interest application is actually open now and will continue to be open until March 15th. Also, throughout February and March, all of our high schools will be opening up their institutes for information nights so that parents can go to the school campus and learn more about their particular institutes, as well as our high schools are pushing down into middle schools to make sure middle school students are aware during the school day as well. I talked about March. Looking forward, we have institute applications close in March. In June, we will host another round of Future Ready Institute teacher training, including teacher externships in that process as well. And then in August, we will be opening up our second year with 9th and 10th grade students, 27 institutes in 13 different high school locations. So this slide captures just a few of the infographics that you should see as a result of our work. We do have 5 branded partners. I'll talk about that in just a second, but those 5 branded partners equate to over $1.5 million in financial or in-kind contributions to our institutes. We have 16 different industry pathway programs, and that's anything from advanced manufacturing, which houses welding and machining, all the way up to health sciences, architecture, and construction, and you can see the rest of those there. The program pathways that we have laid out in the next 4 years, we hopefully will lead to students having the opportunity to sit for 41 industry certification opportunities, as well as 31 dual enrollment opportunities. We were awarded the Community Impact Award from the Urban League of Greater Chattanooga in 2018, and we have over 60 plus individuals who are a part of our advisory boards all throughout our schools. And like I said earlier, we have 27 institutes in 13 locations. So there's some great action shots of some of our students doing a variety of things, anything from working on a FANUC robot there on the bottom left to welding, taking blood pressure. Over here, there's actually a student listening to a real set of lungs in one of our health sciences institutes, and just a lot of opportunities for our students. So to talk quickly about our institute partners, I would be remiss if I did not tell you about some of our robust partnerships that we have. We have, on top of the individual organizations that are helping us in our advisory committees, we have many businesses that have stepped up in Chattanooga and said they want to put a significant investment into our schools. We have Erlanger is working with the Howard School and Health Sciences. EPB is working with Tyner. Bryan College with East Hamilton. UTC is working with Tyner's Teaching and Learning Institute. And on top of that, we have Unum, which Unum is contributing to the overall institute approach. They are the ones that have provided $100,000 a year for the next 3 years. That pays for teacher stipends during the summer to be able to attend our teacher externship processes, as well as other ways that we can continue to grow our institutes throughout the next the upcoming years. On top of that, we have some partners that work extremely close with us, Chattanooga State and TCAT. We are working very closely with them as we look at ways to expand our dual enrollment options and offer more opportunities for students while they're in high school to gain some credentials while they're sitting in a high school classroom. On top of that, we do have JP Morgan Chase, who made an initial investment last year when we were beginning our Future Ready Institutes, and have also contributed an additional $145,000 through a proposal written by Chattanooga 2.0 to work with us. It's actually on the agenda later on tonight. This will give some opportunities to build out the Advanced Manufacturing Institute at Lookout Valley Middle High School, as well as give us the opportunity to do teacher training, purchase equipment for Brainerd High School and the Advanced Manufacturing Production Assistant, as well as provide opportunities for some Brainerd High School seniors to be able to receive training and receive certification and be awarded funds for Advanced Manufacturing Production Assistant, which could lead to some jobs right here in our local Chattanooga economy. The last one that I will speak with, and I'll invite her to come and say a few words, is the Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce. The Chattanooga Chamber has done a fantastic job partnering with us, providing us the real perspective of workforce development, and like I said earlier, helping us in the development of our industry councils. And here today we have the Vice President of Talent Initiatives for the Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce, Mrs. Molly Blankenship, who is going to talk a little bit about our industry councils. Molly.
Thank you, Blake, and good evening. I'm happy to be here and appreciate the opportunity. I was really pleased whenever I started my job just a few months ago to see that Dr. Johnson and Blake were reaching out proactively to the Chamber and to me for new and better and different ways to partner. And so one of the first things that we have done under this new era of partnership, if you will, is form these industry councils. And so you have a graphic here that can show you a little bit about how this works just structurally. You're familiar with the Future Ready Institutes at each of these 13 high schools. All of those institutes, as Blake mentioned, already have advisory boards that interact in sort of a one-to-one capacity with the individual institutes. So those boards are comprised of community leaders, business leaders who interact with students and educators and help move the work forward on the ground. But what we have done is we have formed these 4 higher-level industry councils grouped by sector in business and IT, healthcare, public service, and STEM. And these industry councils are comprised of industry leaders who are responsible for guiding and leading the work of future-ready institutes who fall under their sector. And so what we've done essentially is form this really direct communication line between business and education that is ongoing, frequent, and focused, and allows these industry leaders to really focus on widespread improvement and change and alignment. So whether it's in work-based learning or aligned curriculum, they're able to focus in those areas and make sure that future-ready institutes are not only aligned, but continue to realign with the needs of industry. So we're excited about that. And I'll just tell you that as a representative of the business community, talent, workforce, whatever you want to call it, it is the top concern for business leaders in our community, and from some of the research that the Chamber has been helping facilitate for our community at large. And we do not foresee that conversation changing because the nature of work and industry is changing so rapidly and will continue to change at an exponential pace. We think that it's really important that we get out ahead of that challenge, that we're not in a continual state of catch-up, and that we have to be creative, innovative, and collaborate in new ways. So we are really thrilled about this partnership. We think that future-ready institutes are a great way to do that work and one piece of that. And so we appreciate the opportunity to be involved and support the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Now, this is probably the highlight of the whole presentation because the adults are going to sit down and give you an opportunity to hear from kids, or students, I should say. So first off, I want to introduce to you Jamal Macon. Jamal is a freshman at the Howard School, and he is a member of the Erlanger Institute of Healthcare and Innovation. So welcome, Jamal.
Good evening. My name is Jamal Macon. I'm from the Howard High School. I'm in Erlanger Institute of Healthcare and Innovation. I've had 3 unique experiences in my institute. First, I've learned how to become a better leader. Second, I was able to participate in student ambassador training and represent my institute on TV. Third, I've learned new skills and completed CPR and Stop the Bleed training. What makes my institute experience different from normal schools is my teachers stay on top of me about my work. Second, we are family no matter what. Third, we get to teach upcoming 8th graders about our institute. Because of this institute, I will have made connections with Erlanger employees and other healthcare professionals. They will mentor me and hopefully offer me a job one day as a neurologist.
Next up, we have Lily Akins. She is a 9th grade student at Red Bank High School and is a member of the Institute of Computer Science and Engineering.
Hello. My name is Lily Akins. I am a freshman at Red Bank High School. I am part of the Future Ready Institute of Computer Science and Engineering. Future Ready Institute has helped me transition into high school. It's also provided many opportunities for me that I wouldn't get otherwise. I've had the opportunity to plan for my future, exposure to STEM fields, participating in ambassador training, and experiences in professionalism and public speaking. It has prompted me to participate in more challenging classes that incorporate STEM topics into like the standard curriculum. As a part of one of my institute classes, we looked at the standard English curriculum and we looked at it through like an engineering lens. So while we were learning about like the Odyssey and Odysseus' journey, we designed and engineered a boat that endured a similar journey. At Red Bank, students in the institutes are put in cohorts which help you meet peers and practice working with others. This has allowed me to build friendships with people who have similar interests and be in an environment that encourages growth, not only in academics, but in social skills, all of which are necessary for your life after high school. The teachers help you make a plan for your future by giving you tools and guidance needed to understand your options and the steps you need to take in order to accomplish your goals. Future Ready Institute has enhanced my overall experience in high school, and I know the things that I have and will learn will benefit me in my future STEM career. While I don't know exactly what I want to become, the Institute has given me the resources and the experiences to ensure I'm successful in whatever I do. Thank you.
I told you they'd be better than me. I hear you. So as we move forward and look at challenges for the upcoming institutes, and as we continue to develop our institutes, I'd bring your attention to the three particular items. Number one is access. So currently we do have the opportunity for students to attend any institute that they want to, as long as there's availability, and we have some procedures in place for that. It's limited to a student being able to have their own access if they are moving to a school that's out of their zone. And so access to our institutes is a barrier when we think about trying to pair a student to an institute that specifically focuses on a career field that matches their interest and their aptitude. Also, I'd say technology and equipment. So we try as hard as we can to make sure that our classrooms replicate the actual working and industry environment. We want students to be able to step into one of these CTE courses and one of these classrooms and forget for a few minutes that they're actually in school and really experience what it's like to be in the workplace. So to keep up with that, those needs, that costs. And so we've had a great opportunity. One of the pictures you saw earlier from Central is where Gestamp donated a FANUC robot to the school, and we've had lots of opportunities like that. We continue to seek for more opportunities to obtain technology and equipment. Design. And so high school scheduling has been a little different when it comes to Future Ready Institutes. When we look at what it takes to be an institute, we really have to look at our high school scheduling. And what that looks like is making sure that 2 of our academic classes are paired with a CTE course, and that those teachers have common planning, and that those teachers have the opportunity to really dig down deep into what's happening in the classroom and have those conversations. And so that's been new for our high schools, and our administrators have responded great, and we continue to work through those challenges to make sure we have the best alignment and design possible. And also, I'd say exposure in the middle grades. And so we know that students are making some decisions about their Future Ready Institute while they're in 8th grade, and the reality of it is many students do have a huge library of ideas whenever they think about what their future looks like. But many of our students, especially ones that live in high areas of concentrated poverty, have very limited understanding about what their future could be. And so we are continuing to work in the middle grades to give them exposure. When we think about next steps, some of those next steps do directly address those challenges. Number one, professional development. So we're continuing to provide professional development for teachers and administrators to create engaging and integrated coursework. Continuing collaboration. So we're continuing to work with local business community to develop our institutes, to develop what that looks like. On top of that, we are also, we just started some work a couple of weeks ago working with Chattanooga State and TCAT to really take a look at some of the dual enrollment offerings that we have. We want students to have the opportunity to take that dual enrollment welding class, that dual enrollment entrepreneur class, because that could be the hook that makes them go and take the dual enrollment composition class. And so we think that's very important, and we're excited about partnering with Chattanooga State and TCAT to look at our coursework and how can we prepare students for that prior to going going into those courses. Development of middle school informational, working with Chrissy Easterly, who is Director of Teaching and Learning in the middle grades, as well as a group of middle school counselors and middle school principals to develop a program and a course that students could take to learn more about STEM and engineering and machining and welding and health sciences while they're in middle school. And then also what I would say, the next step, we are always continuously refining our program. We want to be willing to continuously look at what's working, what's not working, and how can we work together to make that happen. And that's all as we continue our trek to be the fastest improving school district in Tennessee. So that concludes my presentation, but I will entertain any questions.
Ms. Robbins.
Thank you, Blake. I love talking to parents who are not quite aware of Future Ready Institutes yet, so I feel like I'm one of your biggest cheerleaders and billboards out there. But I do have two questions. One is, since we're now going to have 9th and 10th graders in the institutes, does that mean that a child that, or a student that maybe started 9th grade somewhere else could transfer over and jump into a FRI?
It depends on what the particular course is. Okay. And so it depends on if they could enter into the 10th grade course and would they still be able to complete their EPSOs and still be able to be a completer of the course program.
So there probably comes a point like within the Future Ready Institutes where like a student can't transfer over, like maybe by 11th grade.
Yeah, and the reason why is because, you know, if we really want to create a robust experience that's aligned from their entire high school, you know, continuum, then they have to be able to take those sequence courses. And so if we're going to take principles of engineering, then we need to be able to take the second course and the third course and able to get the EPSOs and be a completer and things like that. And one other thing I will say that I failed to mention is that please know that on top of the specific career and technical learning that we do, we're constantly engaging. When we have these industry councils, one of the things that we ask is, what are those employability skills that students need? Collaboration, communication, perseverance, things like that. And so all of the institutes receive coursework like that. We may have a student that gets to their 12th grade year and realizes, I do not want to do this as my career. Well, number one, as a father of 3, we've saved some tuition money whenever it comes. They've made a decision about maybe I don't want to go into that particular field, and so we've helped them with that time and that decision. But also, we've worked on these specific employability skills that you're going to need for any specific career.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my second question, you've done a great job of bringing in business partners, especially on the funding side. Do you envision for the 2019-2020 school year to have a longer list of partners, or where do you see that going?
Yeah, my goal is to walk up here and have provided a robust partner for every single institute. And what we do is we're continuously with our industry councils working to make those things possible. We also want to recognize that we have many of our institutes that they have a robust advisory board, and just because they may not have made that financial commitment, we lay out the needs specifically, and they can provide experiences, they can provide training that happens in the school. And so on top of that, you know, all of our institutes, we continuously work to have more partners. But yeah, the goal is to have as many robust partners for each institute as possible.
And I would just echo what he's saying, just to clarify that slide. Those are branded partners that have but there are business partners and community partners well beyond that list that are on those individual advisory councils at the school level.
Ms. Hill.
Blake, we have KPIs related specifically to Future Ready students within our strategic plan, but then every student in Hamilton County is part of the overall academic ecosystem. How are our Future Ready institutes benchmarking right now? How's it going in their core coursework?
Yeah, so at this moment, what we would look at is we would say we have leading and lagging data, and so we are working to develop a more robust data dashboard as we move into year 2, making sure that we've earmarked all those students and how does that directly correlate to benchmark scores and things like that. We are particularly focused on how can we get the students to the point where they are earning their 4 EPSOs. EPSOs. Really, that's the big key indicator for our students. Are we getting the dual enrollment courses, or are we getting that combination that gives them the ready graduate indicator by the time they get to their senior year? And so for that, what we have to do in these initial years is to look at our coursework and see, are we progressing? Are we providing the training? Are we training our teachers? Are we at a point where when that student sits down for that particular industry certification, they'll be able to pass? And so for us, those 4 EPSOs, I think, are key whenever it comes to what our data will look like.
But what about the academic element of that? What about the social studies, the geography, the math? Yeah.
Sure. So part of our guardrails. So we have guardrails that make up our teaching and learning, and so our teachers are still held accountable to the same standards. They start with the standards prior to coming to our particular, prior to developing the project-based learning tasks that they do. Mm-hmm. So all teachers still start there. We work with Jamie Paris and his secondary learning team, as well as those in Opportunity Zone, to make sure that we have to start there. So, we want to make sure that those indicators are where they need to be. I don't have the particular breakdown of where those students are as compared to the whole, but that's what we will continue to work through in our action plan to develop those indicators so that we can break that down.
I think it's critical that the Future Ready Institute KPIs be a yes and,
Mm-hmm.
that yes, we are hitting these benchmark scores and we're seeing improvement academically in all of these foundational Focus 5 points, and we're hitting these EPSOs so that these children are getting very high quality, well-rounded.
Yeah, and like I said, our first statement to teachers is that we always make sure that we're starting with the standards and what are those standards and how do they relate to their end of course exams.
And so you all are doing benchmarking the way that our gen ed classrooms are doing benchmarking? Yes, no?
They fall under the same benchmark.
You're doing the same tests and the same
Yes.
schedule?
Yes.
So at the end of the year, we would be able to work with research and accountability and do a comparison study of how this freshman cohort performed against other students. And of course, this being the first year, we haven't had anything except for benchmark data. So when we get TN Ready data back at the end of the year, we'll be able to do a comparative study of Future Ready students against the rest of the ninth graders.
Yes, okay, I understand that. But we also have lots of murmurs of, based on benchmark, we just had the social studies lead say, based on benchmark, we think you're going to be excited. So if your teachers have that, are we going to be excited? Are we headed in the right direction, or are you guys?
So I think a couple things. I think system-wide, it's easy for research accountability to pull that data out in regards to benchmark and look at it. So a couple things, just having experience and going through 5 years of seeing academies and seeing them from freshmen through a complete cycle. A couple of things I'd point to is just from seeing it, you may not necessarily see this astronomical spike in regards to the baseline achievement when you're talking about the math, English, science, and social studies. But what you do see are a couple of things, and we'll pull it for us, but what you do see is a couple of things. One, a lot of times because a student is interested in that particular area, you capture students that would not have done as well in the core area outside of it. And then the other piece, back to what Blake mentioned, is moving towards the credentialing and certification or the AP, IB, dual enrollment lens. You see those coursework, really even beyond the 4, you'll see 5 and 6 and 7 as you start to really build it out over freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. There are other indicators we look at that we will compare to: attendance, behavioral infractions, those types of things that aren't just, your math, English, science, social studies, which are the core. And we're seeing, we won't get too far ahead of ourselves, but we're seeing pretty strong indicators in our high schools just in general. And so, we look at that, but then also I think it's important to look at the engagement level. And then some of the things you can't measure, and so the fact that two freshmen come up here and talk in front of, I mean, I don't know, I'm not the best looking guy in the world, you know what I mean? So, you know, adults and can articulate their thoughts, and I didn't know what they were going to say today. Y'all did a great job too, but are able to come up and talk to us. And he mentioned those soft skills, you know, the ability to communicate, to organize your ideas, to think creatively, you know, those elements that oftentimes as we talk to employers at the chamber in different areas, they're so often called soft skills, but they really are the hard skills that they're beginning to learn, how to interact in a workplace, how to work together on a team. So some of those things are a little bit tougher to measure, but you see it when the student gets up and they begin to talk. So we can pull that data apart for benchmark
Well,
specifically.
I appreciate all that's being done, and the intangibles. I think it's critical that we always stay focused on the academic progress of our students, and that we don't make a mistake of pushing students into a technical course and losing academic rigor. That's all.
Yeah, and what I would say, just to make sure we're on the same page, is that the academic courses that our students are taking are the same academic courses and expectations for any single student that's in a high school in Hamilton County schools. The same rigor is expected. The difference is when we look at integrating the curriculum and providing, you heard an example right here of where ninth grade student is reading the Odyssey, which is probably happening in all ninth grade courses here in Hamilton County in language arts. But the unique nature of it is now they're going into a STEM class or an engineering class, and the product of what they're making goes along with something that they've read in English. And one student said it best, and he said that what he's learning in his courses is giving the opportunity that when I sit down in English and I have to take a test that makes me read for a long period of time and makes me have to answer questions and write. In the past, when I was in middle school, I struggled to do that. But through the employability skills that we've been working on, I've learned perseverance. And I tell myself I can continue to do that, and it's helping him in his English class. Still taking the same test, still taking the same benchmark. And I agree with you. We continuously look at rigor. We continuously look at how can we improve our instruction. It's just putting a unique twist on it that is integrated around the career.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you for what you're doing. If we can't get excited about this, we're comatose, number one. You've told me this before, but I want to ask you again, how many total students across our district are involved in the Future Ready? That's part one of the question. The other part of the question, how many of those are attending out of zone? And then I got a comment.
Sure. So 1,200 students.
Okay. 66
out of zone.
Okay. On page 16, when you talked about challenges, you mentioned access, and I know that Dr. Bradshaw and David Eves and that team is talking about how we can make access possible, and I know that comes with a price tag. I understand that, and other challenges. But I'm going to say it as many times as I have the opportunity that if we're going to transport the magnet students, it's only fair to transport the Future Ready students as well. So thank you for what y'all are doing. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Blake, thank you for all you're doing. Appreciate it. Jamal and Lily, thank you guys for speaking to us and encouraging for us to hear you guys excited about the opportunities that you have. So thank you. All right. Next, we need a motion to approve the minutes from the January meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander.
Yes.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any items that we'd like to pull? Ms. Thurman?
Yes, I have a few. On B, let's see, 9B, 1A, field trips. 9E1, 5.101. which is the creation of position and lines of authority.
Okay, Mr. McClendon?
Yeah, 9C1F.
Can you tell me what that is?
The lean frog.
Okay, Dr. Highlander?
I've got several. 9, excuse me. I agree with a couple that have already been hit, but also I've got one in general, 9-2, Roman numeral 9E 1515200, suspension non-tenure. 9E1 5.303, personnel professional leave. 9E1 5305, family medical leave. 5303, bereavement. 5300, sick leave. 5308, sabbatical, half pay. A question on that one. 531 OJI, 5403, drug and alcohol testing, 5607. A very quick question to Scott can handle most of these. A very quick question when we come up to those.
Okay. Ms. Hill?
It's not much of a consent agenda tonight, is it? I'd like to pull 9C1G, the TransFinder mapping software, and 9C5.
What is it?
JP Morgan.
Is it JP Morgan or the P card?
Oh, did I call it the wrong name?
No,
It's
No, she's right.
JP Morgan donation for advanced manufacturing.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I'd like to pull item 9, C6, the procurement card contract.
So we'll pull the entire agenda.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with Ms. Thurman.
Okay. The number 5, Signal Mountain Middle High School. 17 members of GAPP's student exchange will travel to Ham, Germany, May 25th through June 19th, 2019 to experience German culture. Here again, this is not on school time. If the kids at Signal Mountain want to go to Germany, they can do it. I do not know why we have to vote on this, so that way if something happens, we are somewhat responsible. And they say we're not, but as we all know, we are. And I just don't like voting on things that kids do on their own time. I don't know why they can't do it, why they have to get our approval to do this. If they want to go to Germany, they can go. I don't like the responsibility this board takes on when these kids go out of the country.
I actually don't disagree at all with Rhonda on this, and I'm just curious. Why is it that we approve trips that happen not on school time? Is it because school employees are going with them? Or is it because our policy has just always been that way? Is it a state thing?
Could I say something?
Absolutely.
Dr. Highlander.
No, Dr. Robertson, you can probably help me on this. I have some of the very same concerns they have, and I totally understand. But I did a little bit of background. I called some people that are involved with it, and I may be in error, so you can straighten me out if I am. The reason they're doing that is the Ham, Germany students came and visited Signal Mountain and stayed there, and they are considered a sister city, sister school.
That's correct.
And they could have done it during school time, but they chose to do it in non-school time. And I have shared some of the same concerns that you've got. But yet, on the other hand, I see it's a little different situation than some because of the sister city, sister school situation, and they chose to go on non-academic time. But if you'd care to discuss it from that frame, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I think you're correct, and I think there's looking at obviously the school calendar in Germany impacts it as well.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes, and this is different from summer trips because the school board by policy explicitly does not endorse summer trips. If a kid and his family wants to go on an enrichment trip, he or she can. Likewise, if a teacher wants to get together a class trip to go to France, the French class wants to go to France or Quebec they can. And there are policies that explicitly address that. What's different about this is that there is a linkage to the curriculum. Now, we're really careful. It's not required. You don't even get credit for it. But because of Signal Mountain's IB curriculum and how they're invested in German everything, it is a bit more explicit endorsement. Now, I understand the concerns about liability, but I think that the board's limit on liability here is really limited to partnering with this particular group. This particular group is a reputable group. And frankly, a lot of your sister school boards in southeastern Tennessee partner with this very same organization for this very same thing during the summer. If it were not a reputable group, I think we would have some liability concerns because we would be endorsing someone who might take their money and fly by night. But because all we're doing is making the trip available, I think our liability largely ends when they choose to go on their own. In other words, we have an endorsement liability, but that's really it. And I'm not concerned about this group at all. And you're going to say, Scott, people can sue you for anything.
Absolutely. And we know that very well.
And if someone's willing to pay the filing fee, that's right. They can file a lawsuit. All you can limit is the risk. And because you've partnered with a reputable organization, your risk is limited. Now, the question then becomes, as a matter of policy, do you want to say that no school can endorse a trip during the summer, even if it does support the curriculum? That is within your authority to do. That's a policy decision. But in terms of limiting the risk, I think we've done it as best we can.
I think you could make any trip be curriculum. I mean, people can make an argument for that to go anywhere, so that still doesn't change my mind.
Yeah, Ms. Robbins.
Is this policy, does anyone know, because Kathy's not here, but is this policy coming up soon, or field trip related policies coming up soon in our policy list?
It was included in the instructional section that we went through in November, so I don't
So we've
think
already
we
kind of
updated
overpassed
it.
this one.
Yeah, we can bring back a policy at any time for revision.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second.
Okay, Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Seal,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones. Yes. Mr. McLennan,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
No.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Mr. McClendon. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Thurman, you had others, correct? Okay. Whatever. Defer to you guys.
The Lean Frog contract, I have a hard time going through with this. We sat in a room, I guess, 3 months ago with this company, and they talked about how they were going to transform our RFP for our busing situation. We just had one bid last year, and now we just have two, both with companies that we've had bad experiences with. And I just have, I wanted to bring it out to the attention that I'm not really for spending another $15,000 with a company that didn't really in the end do what they told us they would do. I know they can't guarantee anything, but they did sure talk a big game.
Dr. Highlander.
Could we maybe get some input from our transportation staff, what they think's positive or negative about the group? Sorry to put you on the spot there, Mr. Eves, but.
Also,
Big bucks.
Tucker, just so you know, we had a pretty in-depth conversation Monday. I know you weren't there. I'm just letting you know we had an in-depth conversation about it.
So good evening, Dr. Johnson, Chairman Wingate, and board members. What I wanted to stress what Lean Frog has done in the time they've been with us. We talked about the RFP, and we've actually had 3 that came in, but one pulled out at the end. But I think with the more aggressive, detailed RFP that he's put together, I think he's done an excellent job on that. He's also looking at a few other things in the transportation department. It's a very complex department, would need additional staffing, but he's also looking at staffing, and he's also looking for bell times. Some of this bell times were brought up last year on the bell times of different schools starting early or starting later. He's looking at our routes to make sure they're efficient and both effective and efficient. He's looking at capacity on the buses and looking at efficiency. We've got to make sure that we maximize the loads on the buses. And so he's working with our routing department right now with hopefully the help of TransFinder to build more efficient and effective routes. He's also making sure that processes are going to be in place at schools. There's not a lot of time that I've got to get out to the schools to see what's going on. So he's also going to look at that, look at their layout in the morning, which is critical because we're transporting over 20,000 kids a year, and he's got to be looking at the efficiency of how they're let out in the morning at the schools and in the afternoon, and then the processes of the principals, what they've got in place. So it's very complex, and with him going in there looking at these situations will greatly improve our operation. And we talked about efficient routes. Without him at this time, with only being myself and having to deal with more contractors and having Durham or whoever our vendor is going to be next, it's very helpful for him to be with me, to assist me in looking at those areas.
If I can add, sir, the biggest difference is we have a more robust RFP. In the past, it was very lean, not very detailed, but whoever's the next provider, they will have a different responsibility than they had before. So that's why we're optimistic about this RFP process.
Sorry. I would hope that we let Mr. Bennett go over the contract as he did with the last one. So, and I'm sure Dr. Bradshaw and Mr. Reeves will work with our legal counsel to make sure we have a good, solid contract under that RFP. Sorry, Dr. Johnson.
No. No, go ahead.
Mr. Smith.
As I recall, Lean Frog did not make a commitment of how many RFPs we were going to get back. I don't remember them telling us that. And also, I think I've read and I've heard discussion about there's just not very many companies out there that can even handle what we're asking them to handle. And some time ago, this body voted to bring in an outside organization to the tune of $500,000 to tell us our roofs were leaking, what we already know. And now we're asking for an additional, at most, if I'm reading this correctly, $15,000 at most for Lean Frog to provide some very valuable services. It sounds to me like our biggest liability exposure, I think, is transportation. And as I've got under the hood to look at what you guys do in that department, it's amazing. You're understaffed, in my opinion, as I'm beginning to understand how complicated all that is. To me, this is just, my goodness. I can't believe we're even discussing. I think it's a great investment. It's needed. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with Lean Frog. And you're right, they didn't guarantee how many RFPs or how many bids we'd receive back, and there are certainly a limited pool. However, I do want to bring up, because Tucker mentioned it, we only had 2 bids. I've not been told this information. This is news to me.
3. We've had 3, but we had one pull out. So we've got 2 at this point.
I mean, I'm assuming one of them is Durham.
Yes.
Okay, I just don't know how we as a board could possibly move forward with Durham as our provider, so that's awful, honestly, to hear.
Dr. Highlander.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I know when we looked at this the last go-round, at that time there were only 3 bus services that served this part of the country that were capable of doing it. Durham was one of the 3. If I'm correct, Dr. Johnson, do you remember that, or Dr. Bradshaw? And so while I would love to have a multitude of people bidding, there are just not that many out there that can. Roughly how many buses does Durham provide now?
165.
165. I tried about 3 or 4 years ago, you may remember, to take 9 or 10 million out of fund balance, and we could buy 160 buses at that time for $9.5 million, but we had fixed roofs, so we couldn't do that. So we're left with the necessity of having someone provide, and I think we would all like to have the very best possible provider, but there are just not that many out there unless I'm incorrect. Is Dr. Bradshaw? Are there not a multitude of people out there capable, are there?
Not for this complexity of our school system.
And I recognize that. I'm only simply, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I would just ask we take a step back. This is a great conversation, and we won't have to have a work session around transportation as a whole, and let's don't allow that to derail where we're going. Here's the reality of transportation in a bottom line, if I put it in a nutshell. It's very complicated in Hamilton County. Just candidly speaking, it's very complicated in Hamilton County. Very complex in Hamilton County. You've got contracted service, contracted drivers. We had a terrible tragedy that happened here. All of those elements, there's a heightened awareness around it. It makes it very complicated. And I think it is the right move for us to ensure that we have expertise helping us navigate every single element of this, and we leave no stone unturned in regards to making sure we provide the best service. I think, to your point, one of the conversations that Byron is able to help us figure out is just how many staff members will we need to bring an internal fleet in? How many buses? What exactly is the cost? What are we lacking? Cost analysis. This stuff, the reality of bringing a fleet in-house, it's not you can pay, it's like laptops. We can buy laptops today, but it doesn't make them effective tomorrow. And so even if we have the funds to buy buses, we've got to have the infrastructure to be able to support the buses. So really, this conversation is about another $15,000 for Lean Frog to help us finish facilitating this work. And then as we get to that point, we've got to have a complete work session. We'll put options out there to the board and have that conversation really as a whole.
Ms. Jones.
So if we had 3 proposals, that would be Durham. Somebody said 2 we already had, so that's Durham and First Student, right?
Right.
Who was the 3rd company that dropped out?
It's North Central States out of Illinois. They're probably the 3rd largest in the country.
Okay. And did they give us any rationale for why they decided to? I mean, not that they owed us that, but I was just wondering if they shared any insight as to why they decided.
They just said they could handle with the amount of kids that we transport and the amount of buses. They would not be able to handle at this particular time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Ms. Thurman.
Yes, the other night we talked about the new software. Is that included in any of this? Is this something else we're going to be talking about later?
Yeah, I think Ms. Hill.
Okay, it's on a separate thing. Okay, now. So that's not included in this 40,000 that's listed on his, not to exceed 40,000.
That's correct.
Okay, so we have paid them 25 so far, or 23 so far?
23.
23. Okay, and we think for another 25. What are we going to get for that other 25,000, except to finish up the work that they've already started? I mean, is there anything new we're getting?
That's all the stuff you just said.
Well, I know, but they're already, surely, well, what have they been doing then? I guess that's my thing.
The initial thing was RFP. The initial thing was to help us with the RFP.
The initial was the RFP. Right. Secondly, we have routing for the next school year.
Yeah.
if we get the new routing system, then they're going to help us implement that process as well, in addition to looking at athletics, understand that that's a topic, future ready, reorganization, bell times, all of that's included in the package.
Okay, I started saying, does all that, because I don't want to come back and be hit with another, well, we couldn't do all of that, because it seems like an awful lot of money for what we've gotten so far. Like I say, like you say, they did kind of beef up the RFP, but seems like an awful lot of money to beef up an RFP to me, but what do I know? So I just want to be sure you don't have to come back and even ask us for more money, because $40,000 to do all that just seems awful steep to me. All right. That's all I wanted to know.
Ms. Jones.
So, going back to 2016, we had prior to 2016, we had some issues with busing, but going back until November, we had the Woodmore tragedy. From that came a coalition of community members who asked certain things of us. They still ask those certain things of us, and I think I don't have a problem with Leapfrog in that. From what they're saying they're going to do here, it would continue to support not only what we want as a board to ensure the safety and effectiveness and efficiency of our system, but also what the community has asked of us. Because I don't know about everybody, well, I'm pretty sure everybody else up here gets the same calls, but I got a call the other day from a wife of a man who had an accident with a Durham bus. I mean, every week it's a call about a bus. So I just think we need to, I agree with Dr. Johnson, actually just make sure that our ship is tight, so that whatever happens after that, God forbid anything else happens after that, we have done what we know to be right and what the community has asked of us to be right. And so I know that may seem costly now, but what we experienced in November 2016, it's priceless. And so I just think we always remember that. We have to always remember that. And I just want to just make sure that we remember that when we're looking at costs, because we have an obligation there. I don't want to relive that again, ever. And I don't think nobody else up here does, and nobody out there does, or even in Hamilton County. So I think, although $40,000 seems steep, you have to pay people for what they do, and that is his job. And if we're getting the outcomes that we need, then that's something to consider. And I mean, to be perfectly honest, nothing we do here in Hamilton County has anybody knocking on our door to come and work for us or work with us. So that's something that we have to work on too internally as well. And I think we're trying to do that, but we have to remember what our obligation is to the community.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we spend over $15 million a year in transportation, and so we have to get this right, and we believe in deferring expertise, and so that's just what this is.
Dr. Highlander.
I believe, like Rhonda and several of the others of you, that what Benjamin Franklin said about if you watch your pennies, your dollars take care of themselves, and I agree with that. But I also agree that in a $15 million contract, we need every little bit of help that we can. And I tell you, we need more people like the man driving the route where the children were on that horrible bus tragedy, and Mr. Shackelford's here. And as my mother passed, and thank you all so much for the many condolences you gave, but as we went through the funeral procession, we drove by Brainerd High School, and there's one bus there early, is John Shackelford. And I tell you, it just touched me so much that I called him during my mother's funeral procession and thanked him for what he's doing for those children at Whitmore. And we need more drivers like that really care about our kids.
You're exactly right, Mr. Highlander, and it's not an easy job. Trying to control kids on the bus, and you're the bus driver, and one thing that we've done also is putting more bus coaches, and we're adding more and more to the learning community, which has helped out quite a bit. But I totally agree with you.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Ford, second.
Who seconded it?
You had tag team here.
Okay.
Ms. Robinson.
I don't care. Doesn't matter.
Highlander.
Ms. Trees, will you hang right there for just a second, too?
Seconded it. Okay. Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill? Yes. Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
No.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
No, I just think it's too much money.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Right, who pulled the transponder? Did you pull it, Ms. Hill? Okay, we're going to let Mr. Eves stay up here for that, please.
Okay. I am all for this new TransFinder software, but I pulled this because I have noticed within the community that there is some confusion about what we are voting on tonight. And Ken and I spoke, and Dr. Johnson and I emailed about this. TransFinder has a tool called, I believe it's called Viewfinder, and Viewfinder is going to be a fantastic tool for our internal team to be able to slice and dice lots of things and track just about every bus as it moves along. But it is not, as best I understand it from Ken, and in looking at it as a person in the tech community, it is not the equivalent of a public-facing app to track buses. So please understand that. It is the bridge that will get us there. So when we have a transportation provider, that's one of the things in our RFP that we want, that public-facing tool. And this software will be able to push the data to that app.
Right.
So it's been, it was in the paper this morning that this is something to watch, that you're going to be able to track your bus. I think we all want to be able to track the buses, but this tool is a step toward that, but it does not mean that we are getting an app.
So it's in real time or it's not in real time?
For them internally, it's in real time. So you think about like a big electronic medical record software at your hospital or your doctor's office where they can put all this stuff in it, but then we only get this little tiny bit that says X, Y. You know, think about all there's just a lot to it, and I just wanted to make sure the board was aware that we aren't buying an app with this.
That's actually really helpful. Yeah, just have a technical question to go along with Jenny's comments. So parents can or cannot utilize this. I'm under the impression parents absolutely can utilize it, and they'll be able to see where their student is. Am I misunderstanding the
Right.
features?
I brought Matt Egan. He's our TransFinder representative, and all the way from Albany, New York. So he's going to talk a little bit about TransFinder.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me speak with you. Just to introduce myself, Matt Egan. I'm a sales consultant with TransFinder. So in a brief summary, what TransFinder is, we are the planned routing system that can integrate with your current PowerSchool student information system to help your transportation staff, maintain safe and efficient bus routes. Okay. The main advantage, or one of the advantages of our routing system, is our mapping foundation. All right. So TransFinder, we work with your local county GIS to make sure that we can work with the exact locations for your kids. All right. So we've actually already spoken to the county. We've obtained your map data. So the kids are going to be placed right in the latitude, longitudes of the property. So that's a big advantage today, with TransFinder. And when we look at that, safety is something that's key. So when you use any routing system, putting the kid in their exact spots is crucial, because you're going to have kids walking to bus stops. So if a kid's not put in the right spot, it could assign him to an unsafe stop, and we don't want that. So working with an accurate foundation, is important. To your points, we're actually able to integrate with our live GPS partners to do comparative analysis. So as Ms. Hill was mentioning, the Viewfinder module offers unlimited users at the district level to be able to look up transportation information. So the help there is to help out with phone calls from parents. A parent will call the school office. You could have a school secretary plug in the student's name and get all the information. That Viewfinder module also includes a dashboard that allows you to do what we call plan versus actual, which is seeing where the bus actually is compared to where it's supposed to be on the planned routing system. So that goes above and beyond just GPS by itself, because it can actually tell you that a bus is 10 minutes late or 15 minutes late, and allows the transportation staff to, be ahead of that. To the question about parents, TransFinder does offer a website that will allow a parent to plug in an address, and it can provide them with the planned stop location and their school of residence. But there's nothing live in TransFinder's parent lookup portion. As the district looks to potentially down the road look at a parent app, TransFinder is the foundation for that. All right, we can push our data to that app. All right, and that's going to allow, because that app needs to know what kids are assigned to what bus route and what bus stop. So you need that foundation. So that's where TransFinder will come in at that component.
Consider the privacy issues that begin. I mean, sure, you can, there's so many steps to get to a public-facing tool. I mean, we can know here at the district what kids are on what bus, what time the bus is going to get there. We can't give all that to the public. I need to only know when my kid's bus is going to get there, and I need to know what, So I think this is a great tool. I think we should vote this tool in and make sure the team has it. I just want to make sure we know that there's another step.
Dr. Highlander.
I've had a couple of bus driver questions, and I'm sure Mr. Eads probably had too. 2 or 3 bus drivers have said, can a parent follow me home to my home with my bus? Is that, or do they have that? They do not have that capability, the way I understand it. Is that correct?
I talked to Zonar today. Zonar is the GPS system we go through, and part of if we go to the app, part of the implementation is setting parameters. So you can set a parameter of the first stop in the morning and then the last stop in the afternoon.
Very good.
So
Very
good.
That's one question. Another is, what is the danger of, I know when schools have emergencies and parents, if kids get on cell phones and call their parents, sometimes the EMTs can't get in the building for all the parents trying to get their kids out. Is there anything, would they have the capability of going to a wreck and blocking ambulances or whatever, but not now, only when the app is applied? Is that correct?
Right. Okay. Right. And we have that. I mean, we have that now.
We do.
When we have an accident, there's parents
on a cell phone
that want to pick up their kids, and we get the officer out there. I get out there, and before they do that, we've got to do our reports, and they just need to be trained. They need to be trained, and we need to make sure that our parents, our stakeholders are aware that there's some things that we have to do in transportation first before they come get their child. So that's something that we'll have to continue working on.
It's an education, but I do think it's positive that you guys in transportation can have the capability to look and see which children are where, when, and I mean, I think that's great.
Well, the struggles we have now, we don't even get a bus list.
Yeah.
A lot of the contractors, a lot of the drivers don't even know their students on the bus. Right. And using TransFinder will help that.
And could cut down on some potential problems in the future. Thank you.
Yeah. And I would just add for David, when he's sitting in that seat and I'm sitting in the seat, if there's and we've had this situation last year where you get a call, there's a bus broke down on the side of the road, and then we're trying to chase down where was the field trip form, where, we got the form, but where was the bus? Who's on the bus, what school was it from, and we're going through 22 steps. This gives him and literally I was in a situation where somebody else, another former superintendent, passed and said, I saw a Hamilton County School bus in a whole nother area on the side of the road, and he's got to go through 22 steps to try to figure it out. We just need to become more efficient and effective in what we do, and this will allow that. Again, it's safety.
Ms. Thurman.
Yeah, just real quick. One of the biggest complaints that I have is when parents try to get in touch with transportation, they can't get in touch with them. How is this going to help that? Because if parents, are looking for their kids or have questions about buses or want to complain about, bus routes or whatever, they have a problem getting in touch with someone. So, we can have all this fancy stuff if we want, but if the parents can't get the information, that's a lot of the problem that I see.
So I would add that if this board considers eventually getting to a place where you have so right now our transportation is understaffed, and if this board does consider to bring transportation in-house, we will have to add more staff to help with customer service. I mean, that's what it is, bottom line. And so when you start filling the calls that are coming in, David's taking calls, front desk taking calls. I mean, you've got one person at the front, and you're serving 20,000 students on buses. So
well, if we get any more efficient, we're going to go broke. Every time we add some new technology, it's supposed to be so much more efficient. It's supposed to be so more, but we're going to have to hire 10 more people to handle it. I don't know. I just have a problem with all that.
We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. All right, so I'm not sure who's next here. We've got, Ms. Thurman, did you have, I thought we skipped you there a minute ago, I think, didn't we? Or,
Actually, next is the procurement card.
Procurement card, you're next.
okay,
Oh, JP Morgan, I'm sorry.
sorry. So Ms. Hill.
I pulled this because I think it's pretty darn special what's happening with this JP Morgan money, and I've just wanted to say thank you to Chattanooga 2.0 for doing the work to get the funds. This is going to transform lives in Lookout Valley community and in the Brainerd community, and it will lead to real jobs, good paying jobs, and so thank you all. So I motion for a vote.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. So I think that brings us to my item there, the procurement card services, and I wanted to just pull this so we could make sure that everyone was clear on kind of what was going on here. We did actually approve the service contract at the last board meeting, but it has now come back before us, and so I've asked Mr. Bennett here to give us a breakdown of that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so the reason it's back in front of you is a procedural issue. The board is the purchasing authority for the school district, and so when this idea was first floated, I worked with the purchasing department to develop a contract that frankly shaded things heavily in our favor. We also worked with some things because technically it's a debt, and the board can't carry a debt, but the county commission can. And so we were working through some various legal issues. In the interim, it kind of set and didn't go anywhere. But with Mr. Goldberg coming on board, it was developed and ratified and presented to SunTrust. SunTrust, as you may be aware, is going through a merger with BB&T. And what that means is they don't have room for them to have any kind of specialized contracts that are unique to Hamilton County. They have to bundle all their stuff in a one-size-fits-all bucket. And so they wanted the board to go to follow the contract that they have for all of their school systems and all their local governmental entities. So while the board had approved the idea, because we had given you the contract we wanted them to approve, and because the contract that you're going to end up having to sign is a little bit different, even a little bit different, as a procedural matter, we wanted it to come back to the board so that there was a record of what this board actually did. It's not a new deal. It's in concept basically the very same deal. It's their language, but we have a fidelity to transparency here, and so we wanted you to know on the record what contract was actually finalized.
Dr. Highlander.
Thank you, Chairman Wingate. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Anytime that we approve a contract with one wording and it's changed, we have to see it again. Thank you both very much for following through with that.
Is there any other discussion here?
Call for the question.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Ford.
Is that are you motioning to put it back?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones? Yes. Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. All right, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think that brings us to Dr. Highlander.
Believe it or not, as many as I pull, most of them are fairly brief. And most of them, I don't know if Dr. Towns-Edwards needs to deal with it or Mr. Bennett.
Dr. Highlander, could I say one thing real quick? Would it matter that these are first read?
It does.
Okay. All
It
right,
does
go ahead.
because of our ability to do it.
Okay, go ahead.
On some of them. 520 suspension, non-tenured. 5303 professional leave. Also bereavement. 5305 family medical leave. 5302 sick leave, certified sick leave. Sabbatical pay, half pay. That's not been given. Rhonda's friend Bobby Jenkins, I think, was the last one to get that sabbatical half pay. That's been what, 20 years ago, Rhonda? At least, and I'm not against that. And most of these things are pretty good. I think the way Dr. Downs Edwards put them up, they're correct. The on-job injury form, it's gone from paper to electronic. It's pretty simple. 5403 drug and alcohol testing, employees prior to work. I'm not saying these things are bad, but maybe I'm incorrect. But Mr. Bennett, do these not fall under PECA? Do we not have to discuss them under PECA?
So the Collaborative Conferencing Act requires conferencing on things to deal with salary, grievance, insurance, fringe benefits, working conditions, leave, and payroll deductions. And the difference between the current law and the EP&A is that the General Assembly has said that working conditions are intended to be viewed narrowly. It's a more narrow definition. You're looking at me like I've missed something. Have I missed something? I don't think I did. Did I miss salary, grievance, insurance, fringe benefits, working conditions, leave, and payroll deductions?
Well, personal professional leave is definitely under it then, by your definition.
Right, and so the administration actually did pull 5607.
Correct, and I appreciate that. Right. How about 5303, personal professional leave? 530. And bereavement leave. I mean, those are all leaves. Family medical leave, that's leave.
Okay, so with regard to the personal and professional leave, the changes that have been recommended are really they're really editorial. For example, 5.303. The one, and Dr. Towns Edwards can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the change is it used to read the prior approval of the superintendent has designated. Or
it's now the principal.
Yeah.
I made the, if I can interrupt you, I can stop it real quickly. I made the request that there sometimes is a personality difference between the building principal and the employee, and perhaps I just wanted to add, or the superintendent, so that person could go to the superintendent if there's.
I would just put out there to the board, maybe we just pull that whole group of policies that he suggested, and then in our next policy session, we can have the dialogue around what edits we need to make, and then that gives us more time to work through it with Scott so that we can,
whatever's the pleasure of the board. I will point out that since it's first read, what we're talking about now is what the process is for. It's for board members to say, I have a question. And
that was my question. You've answered it.
Yeah.
So we, and that basis, I don't mind going in and voting for it. But for the second read, I think we need to have a session to iron out some differences.
And on the FMLA, and I won't go through everything, but for instance, the FMLA piece, that's really statutory. And so since it's statutory, it's not really something that we can negotiate in excess of.
The taking out the 26 weeks, I'm not sure that's statutory, is it?
Well, so that's actually because the General Assembly changed a statute, and I need to think here for a second. They changed a statute that actually increases the benefits. Let me see here.
We're decreasing the length of the leave.
Well, an application, I don't have my notes on this one, Dr. Highlander, so I can't reliably speak to it, so I'll hush. But these are tracking things that are statutory or regulatory on the federal level, and that the state has done. So really, what I think a lot of this stuff touches on isn't affecting a leave right that an employee would have under a negotiated agreement. Now, I think your point about 5607 in application does have an unintended consequence that might need to be negotiated. I'll also point out, Old habits die hard. I'll also point out that one of the things the board certainly can do, even during conferencing season, is amend its policies. And if the leadership of the association, Ms. Turner, I'm looking over, if they want to drill down and ask for some changes on something, that is certainly within their purview. And so I think if the board hadn't caught 5.607 about non-school employment and how that does affect leave, I think it would certainly be fair for them to say, hey, wait a second, guys, we need to talk about it. But in truth, they can do that with any of these.
Okay. Well, since this is first reading, and we will, if Ms. Linden will call a policy meeting so we can iron out maybe some fine points on this, I'm willing to make the motion that we put it back in.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander.
Yes.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones. Yes. Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Ms. Thurman.
The one that I wanted, it's not really to change anything, except that I was just wanting to know if there was any way we could get the first paragraph in this one in bold letters, so that from now on we will know that either bold letters or in red letters or put asterisks by it or something, because I have dealt with this many times while I've been on this board, and I just want to be sure everybody understands how we go about approving additional positions. And I don't think we ought to have to search for them. I think they ought to be right there where we can see them. And I'm being a little facetious. I just want you to know that this is very important to me. It should be very important to this board. But if I just wanted to pull this one out and let you know that this one is very important and everybody needs to memorize it.
Duly noted.
We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second.
All right, Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander.
Yes.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones. Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right. Have I missed any pulled items?
No.
All right.
I think there's only one item that we did not pull, and I think we should just go ahead and pull it.
Go ahead and pull it. All right, so that brings us to board matters there. What we have before us is approval of the new zones for Snow Hill Elementary and Ooltewah Elementary. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Second. My zone, I'll second.
Any discussion on that, Ms. Thurman?
Yeah, I just want everyone to know that we did have quite a discussion about this. It's not like we're just going through and just approving this without a lot of discussion. We did have a lot of discussion the other night at our work session.
Since you said that, we've had 2 community meetings, have we not, Dr. Johnson and Dr. Bradshaw and others, and basically most of the community is for it. There are a few that would prefer it be something else, but overall it's a positive thing, and I appreciate their hard work in drawing new lines.
Mr. McClendon.
I just was going to echo that I went to the first meeting, and thank you to Dr. Johnson, Dr. Bradshaw, Dr. Towns-Edwards, the job they did leading that and answering every single question. I greatly appreciated that, and I think that will bode well down the road.
Great.
If I could just take a moment, Ben Coulter's here. Ben did a great job as well, really helping with the lines and facilitating the meeting. And we also had surveys and got input from the community around that. Majority were for it. Obviously some questions, and Ben and Ken, that team, spent some time having conversations with parents with questions.
All right, Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander.
Yes.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones. Yes. Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Which brings us to the last item before us here, the removal of state school number. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate. This is a request that we discussed earlier this week about looking at how we classify Hamilton County High School. We believe it was never the intent of the board or the state for a program like this to have a school number and therefore be held to the same requirements as schools in terms of accountability. So basically, we're requesting to eliminate the school number and make sure that more students will have access to this program across the district. Recognize it's been an extremely successful program. Thankful to Mr. Gary Keene, who joined us tonight, that's really led this program. Gary, do you mind standing up for a second? So
let's give him a hand.
And so that's a request before us.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
Second, and I'd like to comment.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to add to what Dr. Robertson said. Mr. Keene and his staff have done a wonderful job for a lot of kids that never would have graduated or would have been really stressed to graduate. I think the concept is great, and I'm hoping that, and I am requesting and hoping that after Hillcrest combines into Harrison and Hardy, that facility is able to be used in a more central location for a similar type program where it's accessible to more kids. It was such a good program, it needs to be accessible. Many of them would not have been successful in a traditional school, and they were there, and we are very appreciative of your efforts, Gary, and your whole staff, and please tell them that's the board's feeling on that. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Just to echo, Mr. King, you're awesome, and I've been touched in a very personal level with kids that have grown up in my home that have sat at your feet and your staff's feet, who today, nobody gave them a chance. Nobody gave them a chance, but you guys gave them a chance. And today they're productive, contributing members of society. Mr. King, it wouldn't have happened had it not been for your passion and compassion and all of your staff up there. And my goodness, I just can't thank you enough, and that's on a personal level.
Ms. Thurman?
Yeah, well, I just want people to understand this is just going to kind of spread this program out to more places where more kids can access what you have. And my thing is about the staff. He's still going to be at the hub that we're going to have, and his staff, hopefully, I know your staff, hope they're able to continue along with you as well. So it's not like we're just completely getting rid of the program, just open a little bit more options, more accessibility for more students at more schools. And I know we haven't ironed out all of the I guess the wrinkles in this thing. I'm still not real sure that I understand exactly what's going on, because I'm not sure that we know exactly what's going on. But as soon as it's there, we really need to let the public know what it is.
We will. We've got a plan in place, and we didn't want to, preemptively do this, but a plan in place to gather Gary and his staff to help us think through. They're the experts. They know how this works, and work also with Renee Lynn at Chattanooga State that runs the Diploma Completion Program to get their ideas to really build this out. So you guys are talking like Gary's going away or something. We'll lean heavily on Gary's expertise, and I think there are a couple of options for how we can do this, but we definitely want to lean heavily on them.
All right, that brings us to events and announcements just quickly. Sorry. I forgot about that. Yes. Motion.
So we have the motion. We have the motion.
Have a motion and second.
Let's do it.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill? Yes. Mrs. Jones? Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes.
Okay, with that being said, we had a motion and a second on the consent agenda. I'm not sure we actually voted on it either. So just to be safe, could we just go back and do that again?
We can.
Okay, so that covers all the other
items. As Ms. Robinson said, we individually went line item there. We got it all.
Well, there are actually some other things on there that weren't pulled.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we had that part. We just need to vote.
Let's do it.
Okay. Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones? Yes. Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Sorry. All right, so quickly, events and announcements there on the last page. The U.S. Navy Concert Band is going to be at Soddy Daisy High School, but as Ms. Thurman has told us before, I think sold out, so it doesn't really matter. You can go stand outside the gym maybe and get a few notes. There are some listening sessions but I've been made aware that those are on the website, so I won't read all of those off individually. There will be Superintendent Student Advisory Council taking place at Collegiate High on the 13th of next month at 5 o'clock. And then also a budget work session March 14th at 4 o'clock. And then also Ms. Lennon asked to make sure that these were announced. All County Band is going to be at Christ United Methodist Church on East Brainerd Road this Saturday. Arts Honors Awards at Chattanooga State on May 21st. They'll also be giving the Arts Educator of the Year Award. National Arts in Schools Month is next month, March, and which is arts, music, theater, dance, and chorus that we provide here in the county. And then Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, Monday Schools Fair at Unum, Future Ready, open enrollment and early college programs will be there. Also today, had a chance to go to TCAT. We had over 47 students. It's over 47 students because not all of them were there, but we had 47 students present that did the TCAT signing. And so they signed a letter of intent, kind of like signing day, to go on and do technical training in specific areas. March 1st, we'll have a pie breakfast. Yep. March 1st, we'll have a pie breakfast, Partners in Education, first one that we're doing.
Will there be pie?
There won't be pie. There'll be breakfast. There may be breakfast pie. Yes, there may be breakfast pie.
Yeah, but will there be keys?
Saturday, we just don't want to let you go. Saturday, 9 till 12. You may have to use a rowboat, but there will be teacher recruitment fair at East Brainerd Elementary. And so appreciate Keith and his team putting that on. And then the last thing I think I'll have is we'll be on a 2-hour delay tomorrow due to the rain. Yes. And we are watching the weather throughout the night. Can we? And in fact, I know I'm going long, but since I've got a public place to be able to do this, we've met every day this week at sometime between 2:30 and 3:30. We get an update from Ken, National Weather Service, Emergency Management, road conditions. We send a team out at 3:30, between 3:30 and 4 in the morning, to try to get a recommendation out. We just have some areas that have continued to flood, and the rain's not letting up. So, anyways, that's our plan as of now, and we'll keep folks posted if something changes overnight.
And I just wanted to commend you and your team for the communication. I think in the last year and a half since you've been here, this morning was the first 5 a.m. call I've had, where I know in the past that was the norm. So I know I appreciate it as a parent, but also so many people have told me that they really appreciate the communication. So thank you.
Last thing, I don't want to miss this creative change going on, special fundraising project for Arts Build. Donate change to fund supplies for the arts in local schools. That's going to be going on in Hamilton County. So all proceeds going directly to that. Go ahead, Dr. High.
Real quick, this board was honored today. I got a call from, as former chair, I got a call from Chalkbeat Magazine. Some of you read it. Some of you, I've sent articles to you. And the choosing of the superintendent that we did when we hired Dr. Johnson has been considered a model for the rest of the state to use. And Memphis is wanting to get all the information they can. They can pay us, yeah. But at any rate, I thought it was a compliment to the board in the process, and to Dr. Johnson being the person who's chosen
the model, or the okay, I'm just.
And I want to thank Dr. Johnson and his team, Dr. Bradshaw and the group and I defended them to several people in my community. I said they sent out people, they wanted to have a full school day if they could. And that's why and I defended them. I said they sent out people to 3 major trouble spots at least in the county, and then also they were in contact with Morristown, the Weather Service. And thank you for that. Thank you.
All right, meeting adjourned.
He did say 2 hours late, Mom.
Yes, and there's no glitch.